Every morning this week, much like every morning in recent memory, no matter how I'm feeling about life or the world, I wake up, I put on my glasses, I pick up my phone, and I glance at the headlines. I know that I have stood here for years and said there are times when we need to find other ways to experience life and ways to escape from the news and social media. And frankly, there are certainly times when I do that. But most mornings, being in the profession that I'm in, I like to wake up and check the status of the world before I start my day. Now, with that said, pretty much every day there's been something in the headlines, or actually beyond the headlines, buried in a story somewhere, where I could have, in my prolific social media presence, posted something that, with like any post, I would hope to be both somewhat profound and frankly help me cope with my own angst about the state of the world. But as most of you who are Facebook friends with me know, this week I have mostly chosen to post pretty pictures of butterflies and baby deer from my walks either around the UUCF campus or my morning walks as I try to cope with the world as it is by sharing these experiences of beauty. Then, that effort for tranquility suddenly came to a halt when I woke up on Friday morning. And I read a headline that personally made my blood boil. I was ready to speak to this great injustice and let everyone know how I felt about it. I was furious, and I was ready to blast forth a post on social media that I was sure to be shared around the world and serve to change the course of history. Yes. Yet in the end, I decided I wasn't going to save Stephen Colbert's job through the brilliance of my Facebook post. Sadly. And to no one's surprise, last week, our chance for outrage didn't diminish. I mean, the continuing outrage of what's happening in the Middle East alone could be enough, but pile on top of that stories of pettiness and cruelty and revenge, all happening in the name of governing, could easily and understandably drive any of us to a place of reactivity, defined as thoughts or actions that are readily responsive to a stimulus occurring as a result of stress or emotional upset. Stimulus that causes us stress or emotional upset in many ways is being done, it seems, oftentimes on purpose. Programmed for us to be reactive to some things in the hope that we will ignore others. Or try to get us to use all of our energy reacting to what's outrageous and things that are happening in such a way to try to keep us off guard or disorganized. Now, certainly one thing for us to think about in all of this are strategies for self-care and resilience in these very difficult days. And we here at UUCF have talked about some of these strategies and will continue to do so in the future as we explore our journey together through these difficult times. But today I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about how we can self-regulate our reactivity and channel our energy a bit more intentionally. When I was a younger person during the Iraq War, I remember watching a small group of folks on a street corner in San Diego protesting. I must admit, as they were screaming at the top of their lungs, "Peace now! Peace now!" it seemed incredibly ironic to me. For years I thought one of two things is motivating them. Either they think this will somehow contribute to bringing an end to the war, or, which I was, by the way, pretty sure wasn't going to happen, or it fulfilled a spiritual need to do something against a perceived injustice, whether that was the intention or not. I now admit that I have been pretty judgmental about this through the years, I know it's hard to believe that I'm judgmental about anything. And I've often thought, if you're going to go out and scream for peace on a street corner, know why you're going. And if you're going to put forth that effort, let's not fool ourselves into thinking this action will help end the war. And I've always thought, for example, if you're going to get arrested at a protest, make damn sure the media is there to cover it. Or just do it because your soul is compelling you to take a course of action that feeds you and your need to do something meaningful. So now, as I've aged, and with many more years of experience in acts of religious witness, I have come to think differently about this. The UUA's definition of witness is, the purpose of social witness is to make public by word or deed the convictions of an individual or organization regarding a particular issue. So based on my transformation of thought around this issue, I will now share my evolved definition of religious witness, which includes the following three things. 1, a public display for purposes of impacting the public consciousness by word or deed, but ideally with reach beyond the immediate words, posts, or events if possible. 2, a spiritual exercise brought forth by a religious or spiritual need that compels one to take action by word or deed for the sake of one's own soul. And 3, and this is my new third category, public words or deeds to show support, love, or solidarity with those being marginalized, brutalized, or unjustly persecuted or prosecuted, that serves to connect us all one to another and supports basic human respect and dignity. I've now added this because I've come to believe that our religious witness, our actions, our efforts, both individually and in our congregations, are better served if we help ourselves and each other self-regulate with a variety of techniques that support our resilience, but then be more strategic in making our choices about how to bring our faith into the public arena. In other words, how can we be less reactive and more strategic? Not taking the bait, while understanding that our outrage could understandably climb to a 10 almost any day. And speaking of outrage, I'm worried about our outrage fatigue. I'm worried that the outrage that we feel can seep into our daily interactions, our life decisions, the way we're engaging in our relationships with each other. If we are builders of beloved community and our reactivity, outrage, and despair are somehow beginning to influence our living experience, let us gently and lovingly help each other to remember that we practice a faith where we value love at the center. We see ourselves as practitioners of the concept of beloved community. We practice covenants, being in healthy relationship, the kind of sacred agreements of putting love at the center that we have when there are breaks in relationships. We directly and lovingly work to find a way to repair. That's who we claim to be. That's what we're trying to live in this world. Outrage fatigue is understandable in such surreal and difficult times, but we will not and cannot and shall not let our call to respect each other's basic human dignity be robbed from our hearts and diverted from our actions. So often in our congregations, and I know here at UUCF, I've heard us use the phrase, "The time is now and we are the ones." Yes, in so many ways that's what I hope is true. But there's more to it than that. The time isn't just now. This is not a one and done thing. We're going to have to pace ourselves. There's so much happening and so much to be done, and each one of us can't do everything. I know I can't save the world. Some of you may have some of those tendencies yourselves. I get it. Our energy, our composure, our strategic thinking, our stepping up and stepping back, our partnering, our resting, our periods of intense activity, our need for spiritual sustenance, our practicing patience and kindness and compassion in the face of cruelty and hate and injustice, all of this is our call to religious witness and resistance. We Unitarian Universalists are far from perfect. Actually, thankfully so. But this tradition, we heretics against orthodoxy, we practitioners of the often unrealistic and yet deeply shared hope for communities of beloveds, let us find strength, the siblinghood, and the shared support to use our energy as a wise and strategic force for good, for justice, and for never giving in to the efforts that would dissuade us from our calling to help us build a community of all souls for which we dream. And may that be so. And amen.